Hello and welcome to this brand new series titled Research Insights Live. This first episode will be talking about climate and the environment. And when it comes to that matter, we are at a true turning point in history, both in terms of the challenge and the urgency that has reached a total boiling point, but also in terms of alternatives to our current system and our current thinking. We also have Sylvia Bergh. Sylvia, you're part of the time you're Associate Professor of Governance at ISS, but you're also Senior Researcher at the Center of Expertise in Global Governance at the Haagse Hogeschool, University of Applied Sciences of The Hague. Welcome as well. Thank you for joining.
Thank you, and thanks for everybody for watching.
Yeah, we're going to speak about climate vulnerability and the inequality in that, right? Because we have so far, we've looked at what's fueling the climate crisis and causing local environmental degradation. We've also looked at the kind of the international political situation that we are in, of the transition that we want, or think we want at this point, the way we're thinking about it now. But meanwhile, we're already facing grave consequences of climate change today. Not everyone faces them equally, but they're definitely felt. And I have here with me, as you know, and Sylvia, your Professor, Governance Senior Researcher at the Center of Expertise, Global Governance. And I just want to ask you, what's from what you've heard up to now today really strikes you as particularly important?
Yeah, I also thought that paradox that Jojo was highlighting was really striking. I hadn't, sort of thought about it. We also, if you want electric cars, they need batteries, and they also need to have the resources coming from somewhere. And those are probably more or less the same countries where already mining has taken place and oil has been extracted. So that's not really a way forward, is it? For my research, it's also puzzling sort of how then will we reduce carbon emissions. We'll maybe reduce them slowly, but even then other things, other negative effects are happening. And I'll talk to you in a minute, hopefully, about the heat waves as an issue that are also affecting us, even in Europe.
Exactly.
So what does that mean?
All right, Sylvia, let's zoom into your project for a moment, because that's actually also about climate inequality in the Netherlands, but then within the context of the city of The Hague. So I'm going to briefly sketch out the project. It's a research project funded by the municipality of The Hague, where ISS is. And it's collaboration between Haagse Hogeschool, ISS, and the Center for Frugal Innovation. A very new project on the topic of heat waves, and meant for us to better understand the effect of these heat waves on the vulnerable people in the city, and especially how to come to a new policy, like how do we then deal with it? And I wanted to ask you, you said to me, like, the Netherlands has become a disaster country. What is the disaster here?
Yeah, I was really surprised myself, and I think it was my colleague Thea Hilhorst who alerted me to the fact that the Netherlands was in 2006 really near the top of the World Disaster Index. And you think, the Netherlands, what disaster is happening there? And it really is people dying from heat in the summer. And we had, since then, of course, it actually has gotten worse. I think we all felt it ourselves. Last year was quite bad, the year before. And so, especially elderly people who are living alone at home. And again, this is also due to the structural changes in the welfare state, where elderly people are longer living alone at home. There's less space for them in institutionalized sort of care, where maybe where there is a heat protocol, where buildings are better ventilated, where there is air conditioning.
Right.
And if they stay longer at home, and they also are more lonely. That's a bigger also, the loneliness and vulnerability to heat stress sort of has been mapped, sort of how they interface, and because they have less people looking after them. And so what happens is that they might forget to drink. Also, your body is different when you age. You don't actually feel that thirsty, so you forget to drink and hydrate. And and maybe you are not able to take care of yourself because you don't really want to go out in the heat and buy and do the food shopping. So that's all coming together. So we're trying to understand that better. Who are these?
Can you say more about because the elderly people are a clear vulnerable group in this disaster. Are there other groups that are particularly vulnerable?
Yeah, I mean, of course, there are those with chronic cardiovascular and other diseases and disabled people. There's also certain communities with socioeconomic background. So again, it's the effects of heat waves are really unequal, and also due to structural factors. I mean, of course, if you have the means, to live in a spacious house or with air conditioning, then of course you can cope with it much better than if you're in a cramped place with maybe a family that doesn't have that much space and you're more people living together. There's the homeless people, of course, that living on the street. Where do they go? They're not really welcome anywhere inside, maybe in the summer, or where, in the supermarket where it's cool, or sometimes we might go, or the public library, or places that are made available to us. So those are the issues.
And in the research, you're also looking for hacks, kind of how people deal with it. So frugal innovations, as you call it, and frugal is then, affordable, simple innovations that people come up with when they're faced with a heat wave. Can you mention a couple of interesting hacks that you've come across so far?
We haven't really, I mean, we're just starting this research, so I can't really deliver on that too much. But I mean, I think different people, again, deal with it differently. And we are curious to see what solutions have people come up with in their homes. Also maybe how they compensate for constraints that they're facing. I mean, one simple thing is if you want to have a sunshades, on your house, first of all, you need to be able to afford them. And second, there's building regulations that sometimes prevent you from actually installing them. So then what do? Maybe you put something else in front of your window to make them. So some people, I think I've seen some pictures of flat, big sort of houses, not flats. I mean, apartment buildings where people have put, sort of entire sort of shades and balconies have been covered, like that. So that gives.
You also mentioned a few uncivil hacks or uncivil innovations, as you called it.
I mean, I was in discussions with the municipality of The Hague, or we also talked about in the Schilderswijk that young people, and again, it's not clear whether it's really due to heat wave or not, but they open the fire hydrants, so a lot of water comes out, and they do it for days on end, and there's a lot of water wasted in that sense. But of course, it also cools them, so you want to allow it, but then and so maybe that's another point I would like to mention is that most solutions so far have been done by public urban planners and sort of are in the public space. I mean, you can put more green spaces. But what we're really interested in, I think there is a research gap there, is what, those vulnerable people living at home, and again, it's also an interesting conceptual issue. Where does the public sphere end and the private sphere start, and to what extent can the municipality have influence over what people do in the private sphere to protect them from heat waves?
Interesting questions to answer, definitely. We're coming slowly towards the end of our conversation here. But I do want to kind of hear if there's, we were kind of already touching upon that, of what this means for everybody watching, for me, for all of us, how in the decisions that we make and what we accept or do not accept, in the knowledge that we absorb, and the questions that we know are going to be important in the next decades, in the evidence that we gather, in the movements that we support, etc. But I want to ask you, maybe starting with Sylvia, because you've been doing a lot of work just with people, involving people in citizen science, frugal innovation, decentralized policy development. What's the role of all of us in this?
Thank you.
Shift.
Yeah, I had another idea. Maybe I just briefly want to mention. I was thinking what Murat said about capitalism and how it's also interesting to look at how the capitalist system is changing from within to some extent. And it would be nice to have a discussion of whether that's sort of a facade or whether that's really happening. But you know, for example, there's self-regulation. There's the extractive industries has self-regulating to some extent. I mean, I think with the heat waves, it's also about local heat plants which are being developed at municipal levels. And there, for example, it's a political decision whether you involve people or not, right? Whether you invite them and you really co-create, or whether you invite them because you have some element of participation and that will look nice, but you don't really take it seriously. Yeah. So I think there local people can mobilize and say, look, this solution we have come up with. Why don't we institutionalize it? Why don't we scale it up? Or make it a policy, or simply having a seat at the table. I think that's where, at least where decisions are really being made and policies are made.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for watching. Thank you for your time, and see you on the next episode of Research InSightS Live.